Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the 66th edition of the IT Press. So this is the third day, second session with scale computing. And we have to learn a lot of things because some of you already know that something happened recently between scale computing and another company. We will learn about this.
Well, thank you all so much for being here. I know the travel is taxing, so I appreciate the attention. I'm Marlena Fernandez. I look after marketing at the new Scale Computing. I'm going to run you through some housekeeping and then hand it off to my team. We are in the world famous Computer History Museum in Mountain View. We're very proud to be here. We don't have an office in the South Bay, so we got this room. And if you are interested, after we are finished here, you are all invited to take a tour of the museum if you have time. Okay, introductions. So again, I run marketing. Mark Cree is my manager. He's president and COO, and he had every intention of being here. And he's based in Austin, Texas, and they had one of the big ice storms and issues, and he broke his wrist when he left his house just in his driveway because it was so slippery. So he's not here and sends his regards and apologies. I think some of you may have met with him in the past. He came from AWS. And prior to coming to us from AWS, he had two companies he started and sold. One was called Hammersmith, and he's my manager, so I should remember the name of the other, and I don't remember. Do you remember the other company?
It's his fault for not being here.
That's true. We'll blame him. We'll blame him. Okay, so Matt McPhail, he is responsible for all technical marketing at Scale Computing. He'll be running you through the demos. And has been with Scale Computing Legacy, as we say, Scale Computing, for a long time. And knows everything. And then I'm going to pass it off to Craig Teriak, who runs product management for Scale Computing, and he is going to run you through our slides. All right, with that, I'm going to hand it off to Craig and have a seat.
Thank you, Marlena. So yes, I'm Craig Teriak. I'm Vice President of Product Management. I recognize some of your faces from the last time we got together to do this, which I did not believe it was a decade ago, but it's very possible that it was. A lot has changed since then with probably the biggest change is the acquisition of Scale Computing. So back at the end of, I think it was the end of July, early August timeframe of last year, Scale Computing was acquired by a company called Acumera, who's based out of Austin, Texas. In that acquisition, they recognized the brand strength that Marlena and her team had built up around the Scale Computing brand and have stuck with that. I'm kind of coming at this from the lens of product management, and I will say that one of the first questions I really asked as we got into this was, what is the vision for this new company? What is it that we're going to do? What types of problems are we going to solve? What changes? And I will say that my biggest takeaway from this transition is that it's not a kind of a bolting on of products or rebranding of products. It really is the original vision that we had for Scale Computing, which is to provide kind of very resilient and easy to use products out at the edge of the market. It is. We're kind of holding that and actually accelerating it because we're introducing new technologies, and we're going to spend a lot of time, I think, today talking about those technologies you might not be as familiar with, which would be the Reliant product as well as the AccuVigil product, and kind of how, while they start to address different areas and gaps that we had in the edge computing spectrum in the past, over time they will kind of converge together into a single product and a vision that was already in motion prior to the acquisition. And as Marlena said, please definitely ask questions. I mean, that is a big announcement of this, and I think a lot of you came to us from Legacy Scale Computing, so there are certain assumptions that are being made there. So definitely ask questions. Hopefully we can clarify as we go through today. I think that the big stance that we have as a company is, Scale Computing is the only software company delivering end-to-end network and edge computing solutions. And when we say this, it's not everyone is going to buy everything from us going forward for the use cases across the edge. That's not the case. What it really means is that we have the software depth to kind of operate across the compute, networking, security, kind of the full scope of that edge computing spectrum that we'll spend some time on here today. And so for some customers, it may just be that legacy Scale Computing product of, I'm just going to run HyperCore for re-virtualization of what would have been VMware onto HyperCore at my single location. For others, it's going to be massive number of deployments as an MSP across hundreds of sites, or even kind of a global company with distributed enterprise. Let me also pause there and say, I'm also cool because I know this is a tight area. If you need coffee or anything, just go get it, that's fine. And as Marlena said, keep it interactive as we go. This slide, really the intent here is one thing. It's not for you to memorize the 100,000 plus deployments that we have or the hundreds of thousands of workloads that we have running on top of our platforms out there. Really the important takeaway here is that these are already operating at scale in environments that look very much like what we're going to talk about here today. This isn't just pilots and labs. These are full production use cases. When we talk about the edge, we're not talking about some futuristic, sounds so cool term. This really is what we're seeing today in the market. It simply for us means any mission critical applications that are running outside of the four walls of the data center or the cloud. And it's kind of that simple. And we'll go through the full spectrum of where we see those deployments and kind of where we fit into those, but it really is as simple as that. Gartner's quote here is really meant to reinforce what we hear from our customers and kind of already know, which is that data and applications are moving closer to where the people and the devices are that are consuming. Go ahead. Are consuming the applications.
Many of us know scale computing, but we don't know Acumera.
Yeah.
So, what was the motivation from both sides on this acquisition? And so far, does it change something for scale computing in terms of, product strategy or go-to-market?
Yeah.
Before we jump in the other
Let me kind of set the stage, because we 100%, we're spending most of our time talking about those products and their strengths and how all this comes together. Let me give you the product management view again. So, legacy scale computing. So my view was, how do we take this product and, reach all of these customers across this giant spectrum from near edge to far edge and different industries and those types of things. What legacy Acumera has as a strength, they really have two main, we'll call them services. You can think of them as products. One is Reliant, and Reliant was very much focused on the retail industry, global distributed enterprises. The technology alone, though, is not specific to the retail market. It really is around operational change. It's around change management. It's around providing a platform that allows you to kind of maintain reliability across a fleet of sites. That's something that scale computing had just started down our path on with a technology that we called application lifecycle management. And I think Matt may spend a little bit of time on that functionality, and we can talk through how we think these are going to merge in the future. But it's like we were in our infancy on that side of things. It was interesting. I think of it as we were both solving the same problem. We were coming from different angles. We came from we need to have a resilient on-premises infrastructure that is reliable, that requires no operational overhead. It can go into, an ocean-going vessel or a retail store or wherever, and it's just going to work. It does what we say it does. They came at it from everything in the world is going to be different at every site, and we need to provide a way to interact with all the differences with a homogeneous, unified experience for application deployment. And it's pretty much done as a service. The third technology, which I haven't talked about yet, is the actual legacy Acumera product. So this is called AccuVigil, and it's a managed network services. So with the networking expertise that they have, every customer that we talk to, we basically are dealing with networking in some way. Oftentimes in these distributed environments, they don't want to talk to the networking team. And in fact, it's one of the biggest kind of pain points that I think our customers have is the infrastructure is going to work, but yes, exactly. So it's like, how do I actually get this set up? How do I get it managed? How do I make sure that it's monitored and I've got full visibility into it? And that's what that AccuVigil product does. So if you take the strengths of those things together, my view of it is our original vision for taking a platform out of the market to address this entire spectrum of use cases now has just been accelerated, because we have access to technology and people that have a lot of information on problems that we're just now getting to the point of solving. Is that?
Yeah, another question is, was it an aggressive acquisition or merger? Because some key people or leaders or executives from scale computing left.
Yep.
So how could we interpret this merger?
What do you mean by aggressive?
What was it an aggressive takeover kind of thing?
Was it an aggressive takeover? No, it was, so as we talked briefly over coffee, and it was definitely an acquisition. Acumera has the backing of large financial players. They had a much stronger financial position than scale computing had. And they provide the capital that we need to grow. There's no question about that.
The alternative would have been to raise money
That's right.
or do potentially an IPO based on your financial status.
Correct. And those were options that we were exploring. They came to us with this deal, and it made a lot of sense. And I'll explain why in more layman's terms. So it was very interesting because at first, I was a bit shocked. It didn't make a lot of sense to me until I started talking with their management team. And while it's networking, which we don't do, their focus is helping mostly retailers, but multi-site operators deploy applications with very little touching from IT. That's exactly what we do, right? We deploy applications at the edge where people don't have IT. They help deploy network security so people can run their application at the edge. So it made sense I don't know if we got the slide yet, but we're the largest and only edge computing company, right? HP does edge computing, IBM does edge computing, they do a lot of other things. We only are focused on edge computing. And so that merger made a lot of sense to all the financial backers and to us.
So the key question is, did you know Acumera before, and did you work with Acumera before?
We did.
Yeah.
We did because, not work with, because we competed with their Reliant products.
Okay.
So we did compete pretty aggressively, and so now it's a great merger because Reliant is edge computing as a service. We're edge computing on premise. Now we talk to customers and we say, what do you prefer, right? What works? And we're the only ones who can do that. So it was very productive.
And I will say, those of you that know us well know that we have kind of a certain culture to us at Legacy Scale Computing of kind of a Midwestern, just nice people, hopefully. Like that's the ethos we try to put out in the world. And I will say that the team that I have met over the last 7 months or however long it's been of working with the Acumera team, they're very much scalers at heart. So it's even on that level, it's been a really good union.
Yeah, and actually from an operational perspective, it's been a very good match. So we're strong in North America, but we also have, as I think you all know, strong operations in Europe and burgeoning little by little in Australia.
Yeah.
They were strong as well in North America, but also in Latin America. So they have a development team in Brazil. They also have a development team in India. And so that really helped us, will really help us scale up from a development perspective. But they didn't have operations in Europe, though they have European customers, which he's about to go through. I mean, we have Chanel in North America. We don't have Chanel in France. We have a much better opportunity now to get Chanel in France.
Yeah.
We have Sephora in San Francisco. We're working on Sephora in France, etc.
We've got Taco Bell
That's right.
primarily North America, but also growing in the UK. Pretty much every one of these global brands has a presence globally, as the name would imply, and we're kind of riding that into those deployments with a much stronger stance, just from a corporate perspective, and now even more so on the product side. Just some of the, we'll spend some time at the very end of this, hopefully going through case studies, and you can see the exact deployments. But just to call out a few of these, if any of you traveled through the San Diego airport on your way here, you were caught on video surveillance on a platform that is running scale computing. If you went through Hudson News and bought a magazine, you paid for something on a point of sale system that is running on a scale computing platform. If you bought a coffee at Dunkin' Donuts on your way through the airport, you were on a point of sale system that is running on a scale computing platform. It's pervasive, and honestly, these are the ones that we like to show off. There are thousands of customers that you've never heard of before that are running scale computing, and it's kind of part of everyday life. And the applications, I think what's interesting, we spend a lot of time talking about retail because I think it's just so easy to grasp as an IT buyer and somebody in the IT community. It's like, I buy things all the time. I understand how that works, even if I'm not in the retail space. But it doesn't matter about the industry. It's retail, it's logistics, it's transportation, it's state and local government. They all have very similar problems, and the applications are wildly different. And so we really focus on solving that problem space. And like I said, we'll spend more time on all of the individual use cases and hopefully answer some questions about that here shortly. Marlena mentioned, they were based primarily in North America. Our headquarters now is in Austin. I'm based, actually, I say local, but it took me 2 hours to drive here this morning because traffic. Matt lives just down the street. Marlena is in Denver. We really are a global company. There is a team of people they're not just flying in for meetings and trying to win customers and they fly back out. These are people that live in region, in EMEA, and kind of internationally to have those in presence meetings with customers and partners and build out our brand, build out our customer base, and kind of be the face of our customers in this region. So we're very committed to that, which is one of the reasons we're excited to talk to you today. I won't spend too much time on this. I'll point out the CRN awards on here, but we'll say that the awards that we've had over time for our various products, it's not a reason to buy our product. What it is more of a signal to the market about the consistency of the product, customer validation of the product doing what we say it does, and it hopefully will reinforce everything we're going to show you here today. So we've kind of covered this, but let me be more explicit on what it is that we do. Scale computing is really intended to help organizations operate critical applications on premises, somewhere on the edge computing spectrum we'll spend on the very next slide, with a lot less operational overhead than our competitors. I mean, that's really where we have our sweet spot. And it doesn't matter which product we're talking about, like that is the vision and the use case and the problem that we're trying to solve out in the market. That could be a single customer running just a hypercore cluster on premises with 3,200, I don't know, something like that, VMs. It could be somebody who's more using cloud native technologies and Kubernetes. It could be just standard containerization running Docker. It could be an MSP that's got hundreds of customers that are all slightly unique, but they need to manage them and provide remote monitoring and management services for those customers. It could be a global enterprise that's running thousands of sites and wanting kind of a unified experience across their entire fleet. Our focus really is not about chasing any individual trend. Edge computing is a very great word, and we're latching onto that. But to be honest, it is a trend in the word. The actual fundamental problems we're solving have been there forever. We are focused on making infrastructure deployable, operable, and resilient in very real-world conditions. Let's spend some time. I've talked about the edge computing spectrum about 10 times now, but I haven't shown you what I'm talking about. The edge computing spectrum is really how we think of edge computing. It's literally anywhere outside of the four walls of the data center or the cloud. And we have customers really everywhere on the spectrum. I mentioned our MSP footprint and the managed service providers that are providing infrastructure as a service or DR as a service for their customers. They typically will fall somewhere in this near edge area where they have their own data center. They call it a data center. In fact, it's very uncommon for anyone to not call even a server closet their data center. I mean, that's just kind of how people think about it. But as you get further away from that core data center where you've got all the tier 1 data center attributes that you could possibly have with armed guards and perfect power and cooling and all these things, things start to break down the further up that you get on the spectrum. A lot of the legacy scale computing customers fall in this local data center. And as I said, it could be a data center closet. They're running what would have been VMware and they're making a change due to increased pricing or some other reason that they're looking to continue on. Keep going further out, compute edge, some of the use cases we were talking about earlier with Avolta, and that would be the Hudson News and Dunkin' Donuts types of workloads, would kind of fall into the compute edge where you need some level of resiliency out there as far away from your core data center as possible. And then ActiveVigil falls really in this kind of gateway to device edge area. So ActiveVigil is that managed network service. We provide a gateway device that literally physically sits on-prem and actually runs applications that are very OT specific and very industry specific good call that. So here's this gateway device. This is the Acumera. In fact, I'll pass it around if anyone wants to see it, just as an example of the type of device that you would see out there at that far edge. The reasons we hear from customers as to why they've decided to run on-prem. I mean, I kind of spent a little bit of time talking about the pains of running on premises, of needing IT resources on-prem, and rolling trucks, and just the fact that there's not a lot of resiliency necessarily in the network. The reasons we hear from our customers of why they run on-prem typically fall into a handful of categories. The first one being cost. It's really often that we'll talk to a customer that says, I mean, I could run on the cloud, but refactoring this application to run in cloud native technology is going to be expensive. It's often more economical to just stay the course and run that on premises, even if it's a legacy application. We will hear resiliency. One of the use cases I find just fascinating is we've got several customers that are in ocean-going vessel type of use cases where they have a ship that is out on open waters, and the connectivity is great when Starlink is there, but when that fades, all of a sudden they're left to whatever's left on the ship. And you're talking things like navigation, you're talking crew, if they have a downtime, they want to watch a movie, the only way they can do that is they can access something on premises for that compute. Those are the types of applications that are interesting there. And that resilience of the network itself, like if you have to rely on your internet connectivity to run those applications, that could bring everything to a grinding halt, or worse in that logistics type of company where you're on an open vessel. It goes beyond just not being able to do transactions. Like, you're putting people's lives at stake in that type of scenario. We do hear regulation quite a bit, although it's interesting, we don't hear it as much as we used to. Personally identifiable information is really common in some of these use cases, and so people are making the decision either through forced regulation or just their own security stance that they want to run something on premises and kind of have all of that data processing there locally. And then the last piece, which I think is probably the most exciting one, is around throughput and latency. A lot of the newer applications that we're seeing that are being deployed, and again, it's across industry, are around AI. I'm sure you've probably heard that term 300 times already this week. AI is one of the use cases that we are starting to see burgeoning in these various markets where they are running some form of computer vision, processing, doing some inferencing there locally, making a decision, and sending that data to the cloud is either cost prohibitive because of the throughput that's required for that, or the latency of being able to make real-time decisions necessitates that it runs there physically on premises. And I would say that last driver is, this is really where AI at the edge comes in. It shows up in stores and factories, remote facilities. It's the closer the compute is to the data, the more usable that AI becomes. But when you decide you're going to run that outside the cloud or the core data center, you're introducing new problems, problems that the people that care most about the AI models haven't even thought of, and that really comes down to the operational constraints of running things on premises. In practice, we kind of see that AI can struggle in a few different areas when you're trying to get a project off the ground. Early on, it's usually going to be because of the models aren't ready, right? It's accuracy, data drift, retaining pipelines and governance and that sort of thing that are causing things to fall down. But if you can make it past that stage and get from pilot into production, this is where we see people failing most these days, which is, how do I get this out to all my sites and maintain it? It's the deployments, the updates, recovery, visibility becomes really one of the limiting factors in people deploying AI out at the edge. And the way I think of it is, model readiness determines whether or not AI works. Operational capability determines whether it scales. And that is at the heart of what it is that we do at Scale Computing. So I'm going to spend a little time walking through the individual products, and then Matt's going to get up and do demonstrations of these. It's probably a good time actually to pause before I get into that, just to see if there are any other questions I can answer before I go through the products. Okay, cool. So let's start with HyperCore. Those of you that are familiar with legacy scale computing recognize this as our HCI stack. It's designed to keep infrastructure running with minimal intervention. It's perfect for kind of that SMB or mid-market organization, as well as distributed enterprises and MSPs that are looking to standardize on something where they don't have to spend a lot of care and feeding on the infrastructure itself. High availability is huge in this use case. Rolling updates, automation, really without complexity, is what HyperCore does really well. You'll see us bring this to trade shows, and we stand up on hardware that should not be designed to run HCI because it will fail, and we know it's going to fail, and we do that because the underlying software is just that robust and kind of give a full enterprise class experience, even though you're running on maybe commodity hardware. When those environments grow beyond just a single site, that's where operational challenges change slightly, and that's where the edge computing spectrum goes from a single DC where you might have local on-premises IT expertise onto more of a distributed environment, and that's where Fleet Manager comes in. Please.
On the previous slide, do you see or do you address some VMware migration, replacement, things like that?
Yeah. Yeah. That's so Gartner likes to call it re-virtualization, which I'm convinced they just like to come up with new terms to talk about the things we all know about. That is the use case we see in small and mid-market companies that are currently running on premises. They may have had a mandate, hey, we need to move to the cloud, and they start looking at cloud alternatives and they think, it's going to be expensive. I don't think I can do that. I want to stay on premises, but I've got a renewal coming up from VMware and I've heard it's going to be a lot more expensive, so I need to look at alternatives. That's probably 90% of what we see in the market today. And so as far as the migration tools of actually migrating to us, this includes a KVM-based hypervisor. It's not obviously VMware-based, so you're not beholden to paying the VMware licensing as part of that. You're paying for HyperCore as a whole. And we provide the tools that allow you to literally take your workloads from wherever they exist, whether that's physical or virtual in the case of VMware, and migrate them onto us with as minimal downtime as we possibly can.
So this represents a very good opportunity, but at the same time, this is a really red ocean, if I can say that, because all the players who compete against VMware wish to replace because they consider, hey, we have a window now to replace. So do you see a more intense competitive moment, especially in that domain?
Yeah, so my team runs all of we've got a pretty vast win-loss program where we look at the details of every opportunity that goes through to decide why it is they chose us or why it is they chose someone else. And I will say I fully expected a lot more losses to competitors that I had not heard of. Like some of the big ones that you see marketed very commonly out in the market, I have not seen pop up in very many deals. I mean, count on one hand style. And some of the names you had mentioned earlier of other presentations you'd had earlier in the week fall into that category. I do think it is, people are making a marketing splash because they can get the attention of, oh, bad VMware, look at us as alternative. We were kind of lucky in the fact that we had a solution that happened to be doing the same thing prior to the Broadcom acquisition, and we could just kind of capitalize on that through that mechanism.
Yeah. Now we've seen a lot of success there, and the window is still open.
Yes.
So we are pretty aggressive about VMware alternative campaigns and marketing. We'd be crazy not to. So it was very active, I would say, the first year after the acquisition, if people had to make immediate decisions and they could afford to make immediate decisions. What a lot of customers, I mean, we were very busy, let's put it that way, the first year. We continue to be busy because some people just couldn't make the switch fast enough. So they kind of got stuck paying the VMware, tax, and had to sign up for another 2-3 years. And then, but we are still in touch and ready to catch them when they're ready to move away.
Yeah.
What about the channel, the VMware channel who try to also find an alternative?
That's right.
But not only on the end user side, but on the channel side.
That's our primary focus is on the channel. On our what we call our commercial business, which is at the smaller businesses, 80 to 90% of our business goes to the channel. So our first catch was channel partners. As I said, it was very frothy market because channel partners who got frankly kicked out of the VMware channel, channel program. We all heard those stories. We wanted to catch them as quickly as possible and enable them, and we grew our partner base quite a bit, which was great news. And continue to do so because Broadcom hasn't become easier to work with.
We see that extending beyond just channel partners to ecosystem partners as well.
Right.
One of the announcements we had last year was integration with Veeam, kind of a tier 1 backup vendor that historically was very much focused on VMware and didn't look at alternatives, and now they're kind of broadening the set of hypervisors they can support, and we're now officially on that list. We see many opportunities like that as well.
Yeah.
So, go ahead.
So I have a scale computing VTAX baseball cap that I got at VMware. But just thinking of that to Philippe's point, what kind of I know you guys say you got some increase from it, but from a business perspective, over that last even 2025, how much of the business did you guys get from people moving from VMware over to you guys, as opposed to just net new from, however you were doing it before the.
It was almost all, so most of our customers are coming from an existing virtual environment in that commercial SMB mid-market type of space. And primarily they're coming from VMware. Some of them are running Hyper-V or some, whatever we're calling it these days, some other alternative hypervisor, but most of them were coming from VMware. Really the only change was just the demand. This giant spike in people that, it used to be us saying, you need to look at an alternative, to them saying, we need an alternative.
Right. It was
Renewals were always a compelling event. It just so happened that the big VMware renewal became a big compelling event. Yes.
What's driving the move? Is it money? Is it convenience, ability to work with the company? What do you hear? Is it everything?
Money is at the heart of a lot of it, for sure. And I think there's also a contingent of, we all know VMware users. It's a very strong, loyal base of users that love to get together and talk about VMware and just virtualization and any technology. It wasn't even unique to virtualization. It was just, hey, we're a bunch of smart people and we happen to really all like this product, but let's get together and talk. I think some people are feeling dismissed after the acquisition, and even while money can be at the heart of it, like surrounding that are kind of a displeasure in the fact that they were just tossed aside a
So
little bit.
would it be safe to say that Broadcom threw away a ton of VMware brand and community relationships?
It's hard to say. I will say in our space.
Marshall says yes.
You may not want to be quoted on it, so quote David.
Well, so in our space we hear that,
Okay.
but it's hard to fault Broadcom and the decisions they're making. They're running a very solid business. Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
So
it goes. Look at every time Broadcom acquired a company, it was the same modus operandi. Right? When they bought Symantec or whatever. You knew this was coming. When they announced that they were acquiring it.
Well, they just milk it, right?
But-
They raise the prices and milk it.
But for the user group, or for me as a VMware alumni, to see the old campus get sold for $23 million recently, it is a big shift in the marketplace.
and it's honestly it is sad. It's like I used to love going to VMworld and being part of that community as well. Now we are benefiting on the other side of that, so take my words with a grain of salt. But it's a big change for sure. So that's HyperCore, and again, that's our roots are in that SMB SME space. We grew into distributed environments because they had a lot of the same pain points, but what they couldn't solve in the distributed environment came down to managing things as a fleet. Instead of dealing with a single site, it's like how do I interact with all of my sites? And that's where Fleet Manager comes in. So this is a product that goes hand in hand with HyperCore, that gives visibility, gives orchestration capabilities, kind of things like zero-touch provisioning. Like it assumes you don't have IT expertise on premises, and we want to give all of the tooling possible to make sure that you can get up, running, and operational over time across all of your sites. This is kind of how customers move through that operational scale of going out wide to hundreds of thousands of sites. And I think one distinction that you'll hear, maybe Marlena, I think, was the first to say it earlier, between the Fleet Manager HyperCore products into Reliant is that everything we talked about is self-managed. So these customers that are coming to us that are using the Fleet Manager tool and the HyperCore virtualization suite, it's like they are the ones that are on the hook to get their applications up and running. They're taking care of updates and all the day-to-day operations. It's far less effort than they would have had with competitive solutions, but with Reliance, this is a fully Like it is edge computing as a service. We are taking over the heavy lifting. It's not a here's a tool. It's let's focus on an outcome. What is the outcome we're trying to get to, and we're going to hold ourselves to that outcome as a company. So it really is built for multi-site operators. Most of the success that they've had are in the retail and kind of distributed global enterprise space. Probably the flagship customer for the Reliant product is Taco Bell. We'll spend some time talking about that use case, which is really interesting with some of the AI workloads that they have running there. This is we're talking about the strengths of all the companies. So one of the strengths I would say that Reliant brings to the table is around change management and orchestration. Reliant abstracts a lot of the underlying infrastructure and just gives you this standardized operating model to interact with it. And it can fit in very cleanly with kind of a GitOps workflow where you've got an application team, and at the end of that application team is here's the delivery of my manifest in the application that I want on this version, and kind of put this out into my repository, and Reliant picks it up and runs with it and makes sure that it's deployed consistently across all the sites. That's what they're really good at. And as I said earlier, it's like on the HyperCore and Fleet Manager side, we were just the beginning of that. They came top down, and you kind of see how these strengths really fit really cleanly together over time. And Matt will give a demonstration of the product. Hopefully it'll be very obvious to you of how these things converge over time into a unified product that kind of provide everything. The other thing that I'll call out about the Reliant product is while we spend a lot of time talking about VMware alternative with HyperCore, obviously you can run containers on HyperCore, you can run Kubernetes on HyperCore. Reliant is a container first strategy. Primarily what they sell to customers is kind of a containerization infrastructure that allows you to run those containers on premises reliably. They can also run VMs. It's kind of the alternate of us. We can run VMs and we can also run containers. They run containers and can also run VMs. So again, another convergence point between the two products and how these come together. ActiVigil is that kind of third leg of the stool here, which is all around networking. ActiVigil provides a managed networking service that gives kind of distributed environments full visibility across their fleet for monitoring, secure remote access, compliance testing. For a lot of the customers, like where ActiVigil, you'll see it's not unique to the retail space, but they found a lot of success in retail and C-store and QSR types of environments because of the compliance regulations that they have and the value that they can provide to those customers around compliance. So really you can abstract that into any highly regulated industry. It's going to be a pretty good fit. The key to it is because it's a managed service, you don't have to have your own NOC monitoring these things. We provide that service to our customers to say, hey, it looks like this device is offline, or you might be out of compliance with PCI because of types of reporting. This is kind of a very interesting difference between the ActiVigil product and then the Reliant and Scale Computing product. With Reliant and the HyperCore products, we allow our customers to bring the applications to us. What applications you're running, let's get them running on us. ActiVigil comes at it from almost a prepackaged standpoint and said, there's a lot of general network, applications like WAN failover and device manager, auto VPN, that sort of thing. But then they also have very industry specific and almost operational technology. Just as an example, in the C-store space, so convenience store space, where they've got gas stations operating this small device that we passed around on premises, they will connect into the fuel tanks on premises and give people externally visibility to the level of fuel left in that, which is, you kind of have this convergence point of, I need access to information that only lives on premises. They act as that functional endpoint for that data for those types of kind of operational technology pieces of data so that people can act on it, which is really interesting. And you start to think about how all this kind of bundles together into a joint solution where eventually we're able to provide applications across all of our products through this type of mechanism for our customers. I think it's just kind of an interesting convergence point. So I'll summarize on this, which is, the edge is not niche. It's not new necessarily. It exists in everything from re-virtualization, like we talked about with people coming from VMware to HyperCore, to MSPs that are managing hundreds of sites, to global retailers that are putting infrastructure on premises and need some consistent experience across all of their fleet. It really is being done for very practical reasons. It's the cost, the resilience of being able to connect to the network. It's about increasingly throughput and latency, which is kind of the adoption that we're seeing for AI at the edge today, which tend to be more containerized applications. Just any modern application tends to fall in that manner. That is the problem space that we're focused on. It's that full spectrum of the operational requirements of being able to consistently run applications out at the edge of the network, whatever that looks like to you, and solving those types of problems. And so I think this combination of the unified strengths of these three products kind of coming together today, it's more of an operational approach. As Marlena said, as you start to talk to these other teams about how their product fits in the market, they say a lot of the same things. I want consistency. I want my applications to stay up and running. And that synergy that we have, which as much as I hate that word, I've had to use it several times since this acquisition because it is a very true word. These things are coming together in a way that makes a lot of sense, not just for us as a company and how we organize, but also to our customers and the services they need to be able to fill the gaps that they have and the challenges they have for deploying on the edge spectrum.
So is this new synergistic outlook a paradigm shift?
Is it? I'm sorry. Yeah. That's a fair, let me circle back.
Are you super excited about that?
Yes. Let me circle back. All right. So this is probably a good time, actually, Matt. If you want to start to set up for the demos, I can answer any other questions about how we think these are coming together. This is kind of where things come from. Operationally today, all these things work together, but over time, you'll see a convergence of the products into a unified experience for our customers. And I can kind of talk a little bit about, without getting too much into roadmap items, how I think these are going to come together for us, if there are questions around that or otherwise.
I have a question.
Please.
With the AI way we live, and AI is everywhere.
Yeah.
What kind of AI service you embed or offer or leverage, especially in the virtualization product, the hyperconverged?
Kind of two different ways to answer that. So one is we have an orchestration layer itself that we call AIM. It's Autonomous Infrastructure Management Engine. It doesn't do machine learning, but it is an AI model that provides kind of a finite state machine that has embedded a lot of what we've learned over the last decade plus of running out in these really remote areas. And so it can predict failure, act to failure, expect failure, and make sure that things go from what they currently are as the current state to what the desired state is without a human getting involved in that. And there's a lot of really cool, IP around that. I think though, when we're actually as much as that is a cool technology, we don't really talk about that as AI to our customers so much. This is the orchestration layer that allows you to set it up and forget about it. I think with the products and people bringing AI on top of our products to the market, especially in that virtualization area, our job is to make sure that it scales, right? So it's like when you get that AI model dialed in and it's working in a pilot form, we want to make sure that you can get that out as quickly as possible to all of your sites. So we want to provide a platform that allows you to, through a single click or through an integration with your GitOps workflow, say, all right, I've got a new version of the model. I want to get this out to all my sites. Or I have to stand up new infrastructure to get this deployed out to all my sites. And we're trying to solve those operational challenges for our customers.
Same question for Fleet Manager. Because Fleet Manager, I can understand that you have to manage dozens, hundreds, 1,000 devices potentially. Mm-hmm. And you can learn from some aspects, some areas, some regional aspect, etc. And try to
as far as pulling,
or even if you collect some data from one customer, probably feed and something you have and in order to suggest or make some changes elsewhere.
That's a great observation, one that many of our engineers have also observed and started to tinker with. I will say we've not committed anything to the roadmap on that, but there's a lot of useful information about predicting failures, as an example, or about just even version control. There's so much data that's coming in from every one of these clusters, and it's literally thousands of clusters, that we can kind of down to the platform type be able to give very specific information to a customer because we have seen that across hundreds of other sites that are just like it. So yeah, that's great observation. Matt, you good?
Ready when you are.
Cool.
So Craig talked about a few key concepts, and I wanted to drill into them from the concept of how do we address device edge, gateway, compute, and the DCs. And how do we do it in a way that includes managed network services? How do we do it in a way that includes edge as a service? But then how do we do it the way that you guys, if you're familiar with legacy scale, which is edge orchestration and HCI. Managed network services. So we're talking about managed network services from the standpoint of our AccuVigil product. So let's drill into that a little bit. You can see here, I've got a specific customer. This is a live customer environment. They have given us permission to demo for all of you based upon this live environment. And what it is this is an environment that has zero IT, is actually a edge store that has no server space, nothing associated with it other than the fact that they have one of these. That is the extent of their ability to do compute. And you can see here that for this particular customer, they've got over 200 different sites. So this is truly a multi-site environment. They've got some with informational, they've got some that they've got warnings associated with it. 120 of them are critical, and then some have not even been deployed yet. So this being an active site, it is constantly in flux. And what they have done is, because they have no IT environment, they leverage us from a network operations center, or they'll leverage an MSP, in this case, a MNSP, to handle the environment for them. And these particular environments, and Craig touched upon this a little bit, but let me just reiterate, these are for security and compliance. We're talking about environments that are taking credit card information. We're talking about environments that are on private networking. We're talking about environments that have personal information that is key to them running their business, but also key to the customers that they are seeing on a minute by minute basis. So let's drill into one of their environments. Specifically here, this is truly, I am going on to this device at their environment right now, just by clicking on this. And within that environment, me remotely, I can influence any part of this system for them. The environment themselves, again, is primarily being worked from this small compute device. And if it will load, then I'm able to actually go in and see exactly what's happening. So when this was passed around, you could see that each of the devices had specific ports associated with them. This is key in order for them to be able to ensure that everything's up. You've got auxiliary ports for each of the different connected nodes. If it's a point of sale system, if it's a IoT device, you've got devices associated with them being able to connect to their local network. You've got a WAN port so that I can get in and see exactly what's going on. But as Craig was talking about also, you've got sensor ports here. Like if this is a gas station, or if this is a like Taco Bell, and they need to maintain an IoT device that is outside of traditional networking, we've got the ability to do that directly for them. And then other plugins that are associated with that as well. So let's talk through that. For this particular environment, you can see here that I've got everything that's needed for that device located here. You can see what the configuration is, you can see what the port setup is, and this is a completely network controlled environment for them to be able to see. You've got gateway information and the ability to see exactly what is being managed. This isn't just a network device, this isn't just a device that is handling compliance. To Craig's earlier slide, there are software products that we have utilized through a complete application management environment for them to be able to deploy. And I'll show you that here in a little bit, but you can see everything that's deployed here. Go ahead.
With your interface, you can also power the sensors.
Yes.
Yeah, that was just a question. So
Yes,
power
and-
the internet and all that kind
And even better, and as I'll show you here in a little bit, you can do complete security scans within the environment to ensure that there is compliance and security for that store. And if there's not, you shut it down.
But if you have the appliance, you put it somewhere in a room, and then all the sensors in the room can be controlled, managed, and powered.
Yeah. And honestly, it's probably not even in a room. It's underneath a desk, or it's underneath a point of sale system potentially, if we're talking about
So you
a
need,
retail.
you need less cabling, you need less power.
That is correct, sir.
Yeah.
And with that, you can see that, to your point, each of the different devices that it is controlling are all right here. Anything from a Cyber WAN to a store PC to a printer, everything is being able to be controlled and managed directly from this environment, from that tiny device. And not just them, or not just the IT environment for them, because they may not have one. It can be controlled directly from within our environment. Our NOC on a daily basis gets a phone call saying, hey, I've got a problem at a store. Can you help me? Yeah. I'll give you the code for a remote access that allows them to activate a tunnel directly into the device for us that we can completely control it for them, or they can go in from wherever they are based upon those specific settings. But to your point earlier as well, from a scans perspective, we always want to make sure that everything is up to compliance, because these are places that are potentially taking credit card information or taking information that is under government compliance. We do not want that to be able to be leaked out there. So multiple scans are done on a daily or weekly basis in order to see exactly what's happening from an external perspective, so that we can ensure that they're under compliance, but also from the internal perspective, so that they know that, hey, is the connection to the PC appropriate? Are there any holes in the firewall? Can my camera, the DVR, get access, and I know that everything is being recorded properly? All of it is taken care of right here. And then what's nice about this system is that it's doubly protected in case of failure. So you've got the Wi-Fi system, you've got the setup, but you've also got failover here. We've got, on this particular system, there is a business internet account, but there's also a wireless account. Say the internet goes out. Well, if they're getting credit card information on a minute-by-minute basis, there can be no downtime, because that will cost thousands of dollars for them. So this system automatically will switch over to a cellular modem that is connected directly to it as part of those services, and it is able to be done. And it stays up while the internet is being fixed, or from a failover perspective. And then to Craig's point earlier, if this was particular to a environment that is related to those sensors, you can see exactly what's happening within those particular censored environments as well. In this case, and this is just one of the examples, it's how much fuel is in a particular given tank.
I think the interesting thing about this is not that the information's here. The networking team doesn't care about the fuel tank levels. The networking team cares about getting the information about the fuel tank levels to the people who care about that information.
Exactly.
And so that's one of the nice things about this device and service, is that they're able to kind of say, all right, this information can be shared in this manner, in a secure manner, through to this person or these people. And this is just a really useful example of that, because otherwise it's a manual run out to that site.
Yep.
You imagine the
It's a truck roll.
technology we're looking at for fuel gauges. Yeah.
Yeah, and so then moving forward from that, not only does it tie in with that, but it ties in with all of these other applications that we have built an app management system for. And specifically, to Craig's point earlier from that slide, the app management system is fully supported here, so that there's an application for their networking environment, there's an application for their specific access. You've got door monitoring, just for an example, all the way down to if they have loyalty systems, there's loyalty directly associated with them. It controls everything from an IoT perspective. So that is a managed network security and compliance service. And the product that we offer. So moving over to edge as a service, we look at that from the reliant perspective, what Craig introduced earlier. This directly is set up such that the end user likely doesn't have an IT environment, and they will never, ever see this interface. This is done directly by us and is leveraged directly from our ability to work with them to design a orchestration layer that is precisely what they need. For example, Taco Bell is the biggest one that we've worked with in order to deploy out thousands of sites leveraging this. And we can drill into each of those different sites directly, where you've got locations here, you've got the ability to drill in via nodes, you've got servers associated with it. So if the nodes themselves have servers that are off of it, they are controlled directly here. But then also you've got all of the traditional networking settings or levels of hierarchy here. So you can say, hey, I want to control via country. I want Ireland and France to be doing a certain thing. That can be controlled directly here as well. Now, going into the node itself, you can see here each of the different nodes that are visible, you can click on. And this is really where the power of what Craig brought up is, because Edge as a service truly gives full orchestration to the granular level that the customer needs. I'm here, I'm looking at a specific group. I can see exactly what node I'm on. I can see what it represents, but then I can go in and say, oh, all of this is controlled through a dedicated Puppet environment. And if I need a change done to every site, I can make that happen here. If I need a change to that specific country, I can control that from the level of hierarchy. If I need changes to the containers, like Craig brought up earlier, because this is primarily a container-based system, I can make those available images and changes directly from within this interface, or I can make any necessary changes to the networking, to the build, and to any of the other settings directly from here. I could even upload a new profile if necessary.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it probably goes without saying, as you're looking at this UI, people are not in UI.
They are not seeing this.
This is done programmatically. This is done, again, as part of a CI/CD pipeline. This is kind of infinite flexibility for being able to say, hey, all right, application teams, let's empower you to get these applications out to your site. All right, platform teams that care about the infrastructure, here's how we're going to manage this, and kind of give visibility back to these centralized teams to know what's actually happening across their home.
Yeah. And chances are they don't have an IT environment or an IT team that is really dedicated towards this. Like we talk about Taco Bell, we primarily work with a VP and with a director that then will roll out everything that's needed for all of the particular stores.
Yeah, and they will augment. So we say this edge compute as a service. That there's a full spectrum of services we can offer there. For like an example, like Taco Bell, they have their own team that is actually handling the first level calls on this.
Yep.
So they kind of take tier 1, tier 2, and then we take tier 3 and above. Others, we're taking full tier 1 support. They call us directly on. And I'll also say with that level of organization, you've got 8,000 sites or something like that under management. You're also building your own.
8,200. Yeah.
You're also building your own applications around this. So they've got really interesting integrations outside of this to give additional visibility into the workflows they already have. They've created a few really interesting tools, but I don't know if we can go into all of that. Definitely can't demo it, but like you've been talking about, I don't know where the line is and what we're allowed to say now, but just you can imagine if you can think of a way that you need to measure, monitor, visualize what you're seeing across your fleet, we have the capability of integrating with those tooling and tool sets to be able to provide that for our customers or have them provide it themselves to augment the product.
And to Craig's point, this does also have the ability to do virtual nodes as well. So that is something that is key to what we're like to do. Question?
Yeah. You've had success with Taco Bell. Has that given you more entrees into Young Brands, Pizza Hut?
It has.
KFC?
It
So
has.
you're working with all Young Brands?
Yeah, so specifically Young Brands, and I've got a case study up later just to talk through that.
So actually, let me just slightly adjust that. We do not have all of the Young Brands as customers. we would like them, if you have any influence though. We're working on it. We're working on it, but Taco Bell is our primary. Yes.
And they act as our
Thank you,
champion.
thank you.
If you're able to come back for our platform event, the VP of Technology,
That's right. The dean.
is going to be presenting on the main stage on their environment, which is great to hear directly from them.
So I have a question. So this product use the logo Acumera. So it arrived after the merger.
We just have had, I've had a slow going of the brand changes. So the acquisition happened it closed end of July. So as you can imagine, we spent the first few months like shaking hands, getting to know each other, updating the brand colors.
Parties.
Excuse me?
Parties.
Parties.
Yes, parties,
yes.
yes,
Parties
some
were
parties.
important. Parties were important. So we are still working on updating the branding here. It's funny, I just took a note saying, reach out to his manager to say, what's taking so long on the update?
So this product exists on the scale computing.
Absolutely, absolutely. This is a marketing failure.
So why was it more easy to maintain the previous logo instead of changing to this? Because it came from the other side.
I'm going to repeat exactly what you said to his boss, so that they update it quickly.
Because my question behind this is, if it came from Acumera,
Yeah.
how did you address this need before? But now you said that this is a scale product.
It's a scale product now.
Yeah.
It's a scale product now.
Yeah.
Yes. Just not a little slow. There were other things to worry about on the development side, but besides the logo.
So
But
some people
we'll get on it.
make a joke and swap the logo.
That's right. That's right.
Just put a sticker on it.
Right.
Yeah,
It's that easy.
It's
yeah,
not
you can just do that right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a curiosity.
Yeah.
Had you give any name that device more or less than device? A name?
Yes, it's
Oh,
the
specifically
kind of-
this?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
SG
we have a level,
2V1.
this is the SG V1 device. Yeah, so we don't talk about the device models that much because it really just depends on what the size each of the different sites are going to need. We talk more about AccuVisual, which is the overarching management feature that the device uses.
It's not
But
the
yeah.
SG V1 Pro Max.
Yeah, no, and it's not the iOS SG V1 Pro Max 1726 edition. We're not going to talk about that. But to Craig's point about edge orchestration, Fleet Manager has been a really good bridge for that for us. Now, the new automated lifecycle management feature that's coming out allows us to do direct containerized deployments on it, where you can see I actually have one that's already going through. It's an Ubuntu template that is able to be deployed as a simple application across all of my environments as necessary. But if I need to, I can go into any of these deployments and run them across the clusters that are associated with that. So let me show you exactly that. If I need to, I can create a deployment. I can select a specific cluster group. I'm going to choose my own right there. I can add specific applications associated with that. If I'm going down, I'm going to actually choose an application that is near and dear to my heart, which is the Veeam appliance, because that's something that we've worked with a bunch. That application is already ready to go, and then we can create deployments associated with that. And the deployment name is new Veeam version, and it is ready to be deployed again across the clusters that are associated with that. So what does that mean? I've actually got clusters that are part of a cluster group. So specifically underneath that, I've got 3 different clusters. When you're deploying this, think about this from the standpoint that you're deploying new containers in an edge orchestration environment, utilizing a very simple way of deploying out those containers to any number of multi-sites that you want it to. And the great thing about this is that Fleet Manager truly looks at everything from a fleet perspective. And so there can be 3 clusters here, or there can be thousands, depending on what is needed. And this was meant to be very similar to our hypercore deployment, where we want to make sure containerization, we want to make sure the deployments are done extremely easily. So to that point, the same thing's true from a clustering and a node perspective. If I wanted to add a new cluster, like Craig was talking about earlier, as long as the cluster is zero-touch deployment eligible, you can create a cluster with just a couple clicks here, where if I wanted a new McPhail cluster, I can give it the associated cluster info with it, and then I can go in and say, okay, these nodes are already plugged in, they've already been registered, let's add them. Click, 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 close. I can tell the system to deploy it to a specific IP address that I want it to. I can continue to add nodes, or I can just click create cluster. Now it's not going to create anything because all of these are off. But from the standpoint of creating the cluster, it literally just takes a couple of seconds.
And then you are moving a sensor from one location in the IP domain to another.
That is correct, but you can also think about it from the standpoint that you're deploying a new location within seconds. Without having to do a truck roll, without having to send out an IT team, you literally ship a device out to the environment and plug it in, and then remotely from wherever, you're actually able to deploy that device onto the local network.
Is it just to set that home? So the what zero-touch application lifecycle, what zero-touch deployment really all about is we recognize that, especially in these distributed environments, there's no local on-premises IT expertise. And so what this allows you to do is say, here's a fully imaged node that's going to come from our factory, or it's going to come from an integrator that they're working with. It's going to ship directly out to that site.
Yeah.
And the store manager plugs in power and plugs in networking. And because Matt's just created a cluster with that device, there's a secure handshake that happens where it reaches out and says, hey, I'm here, do you have a configuration for me? And we configure the cluster. So it goes from unboxing to I'm ready to start running workloads. And then that ties together with the application lifecycle management to say, all right, what workloads am I going to run? And so you define a set of applications, you define a group of clusters that are going to require those applications to be run on them, and then you're going to have a deployment that marries those together and says go. And so it will take it from unboxing all the way through to all of my applications are up and running without having that IT expertise on it. Does that make sense? And then it also, so one of the other useful pieces of that application lifecycle management is that it will protect you from kind of variation over time. So once you've deployed across your sites and said, this is what I expect to have running on there, you can redeploy that at any time, and it will take care of that configuration drift that can happen in a very large estate. If somebody's gotten on and done something unique at one site or another, it will kind of bring that back into, okay, here's the latest version that should be running on that site, and the latest state that it should be running, whether it's offline, online, all that. Sorry, man.
No, please. Anytime Craig talks, it makes me look good, so I appreciate it. And then from there, from Craig's point, everything can be managed directly from within this environment. So you can see the entire dashboard as it's listed, and then you can go into the specific clusters. I've actually got a cluster right here that needs to be managed. So I'm going to click on McPhail Patio. You can see here, okay, what's wrong? Drive failure will affect redundancy. The node needs to be retried.
And that was on Christmas Day when
That was
should have been loads.
day. Yeah, Merry Christmas. Thanks a lot. So now, okay,
The saddest present.
right, it is a downed environment. So I'm going to go in and say, okay, this happened on Christmas Day. What's going on? You can see here, I went directly from Fleet Manager. I clicked on Create Cluster. What you didn't see, and you can see if you look closely, this is a secure web address using our secure link technology. It is literally doing an SSH tunnel across without the use of a VPN, without the need for any secure device handshake. It is literally doing a handshake in between Fleet Manager and the cluster so that I can log on automatically.
And it's outbound from the cluster as well.
Correct.
Yeah, that's one of the keys.
So there does not need to be a firewall rule coming in at all. So you can see, oh, okay, it's Christmas Day. Thankfully, my system's still up and going because of our ability to handle system failure based upon the AIM technology. So let's go in, okay, drive failure will affect redundancy. What am I dealing with? Oh, I should probably reach out to my boss and say, I need another node in my cluster because my disk is almost full.
But it only works with issues that are IP related. If the sensor goes dead, it's over. You need to send someone to replace the sensor.
Well, we're still able to track that too through Fleet Manager as well.
Then you get a hardware failure.
That is correct. Because one thing to note, we are now on the hyperconverged product.
Yeah.
And the ability to do full virtualization as opposed to the security and compliance product that's handling those applications.
So maybe it makes sense to kind of talk through some of the common failures that we see out there,
Yep.
right? So drive failure is a really good example, node failures, power supply failures, maybe even kind of relating back to the Acuvigil product of somebody's unplugged a specific device that we are monitoring. You want to talk through that?
Yeah, so to your question, this is going to come up a lot. And this is where it's really key that the Acuvigil product and the HyperCore product can work well together, is that if HyperCore has a drive failure, the networking is still up because we're still managing it and we're still able to handle the security and compliance from the Acuvigil side. So that can be tied in as well. But we also have the ability where if a node goes completely down, the VMs will simply migrate over to the other nodes in the cluster. Or if there's a drive failure, everything is already wide striped across the environment such that the data itself will simply be remirrored to the other nodes in the cluster. If there's a networking issue, for example, each of these have multiple networking ports on it. So you could lose an entire port, you're fine because you've got a redundant port that is set up. You could lose an entire node and you still got networking going into this environment because each of the other nodes has networking. So there's failover on top of failover on top of failover. Again, we're not looking for advanced IT teams. And to answer your question earlier about where we see kind of the differentiator between why we're getting a lot of VMware deals or a lot of deals as opposed to some of our competitors, is because we're making this such that it's simple to be deployed, especially in environments that have no business running VMware, or especially no business running the VMware competitors. It can be run on a quarter of a core and 4 gigs worth of RAM. Very few of our competitors can run a complete HCI solution at that small of a level.
Yeah, and if they're not using our Acuvigil product and they don't have the redundancy and being able to connect in, and their connectivity to the internet goes down, obviously the cluster's there on premises. It's going to keep up and running. Those VMs are going to keep processing. So if it's retail environment with point of sales transactions, they're going to continue. If it's a manufacturing environment, they're still able to make their widgets and life continues on until the connectivity returns. We would see that from a fleet manager standpoint, that cluster is disconnected, but local operations are continue.
I know we're at lunch hour,
Yeah.
and I'm assuming a lot of you have already seen the HyperCore product. I'm happy to go through more of that prior to some of the case studies, or we can.
I think this is a natural spot for
Correct.
people to grab lunch.
Yeah.
Assuming everybody's hungry. And while we settle back in and we're happily welcome case studies. Or if you just want to have open chat, I'm going to ask Philippe to give me all of your email addresses, and I'll send you the deck with the case studies in it, and then you can just read them at your leisure.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, is there at least one in particular that you're especially proud of, case study that you want to talk about?
There are probably two. We spent a lot of time talking about the Taco Bell one. It's it's just such a brand that everyone recognizes.
I mean, if you're here, let's
you can't
talk
go anywhere
about it.
without seeing it. And probably the coolest technology that it's built with is very much an AI type of use case where what is allowing them to order, using the voice agent through the drive-through is running as an application on top of a scaled computing platform. This happens to be the Reliant platform. And then similarly on the, is Advanced Auto the other one we have in here? I can't remember which. So Advanced Auto is another, this is Advanced Auto. This is a North American one, but what I love about this one is just the ability to scale out as quickly as they did. Hundreds of sites rolled out in a very short time frame that allowed them to really execute on their vision of getting redundancy and resiliency built into their individual sites, and all that's running on the scaled computing platform.
Actually, I have some further information that I haven't added to the slide. So they're going to present at our platform event. So I have more details on this. They are updating 20 stores a night. They have like 4,500 stores, 20 stores overnight. So the manager will shut down, come in the next morning, get all their applications up and running. They don't know the changes happened, but they're making all of their stores edge enabled for the reliability and the high availability off of VMware.
Yeah, and honestly, you'll kind of see that theme in all the ones that we could walk through. But those are probably the two favorite. The rest of them were just probably brands you might know of in region who we want to spend time on. Not quite as sexy, I would say, though, as far as the technology is concerned.
So were both of those two case studies running VMware prior or not?
Taco Bell wasn't running VMware. They're just, what's interesting about Taco Bell is that they're deploying AI applications at the edge, right? So everyone knows Taco Bell. They have all of those stores, and they were having a lot of outages. Unhappy customers don't go back to Taco Bell, right? So getting all of those stores up and available, highly available, with consistent applications, so they were able to move managers around stores as needed, is the story there. The AI piece is what's really interesting, and I don't know how many of you go through any drive-through and you know how inefficient they can be. They're able to, understand what people are ordering, do the face recognition, see how they're reacting to things, and adjust accordingly.
I want to say legacy. It's really common in distributed environments where they are not coming from anything virtual before, mainly because of the complexity of having to manage that across a giant estate. So usually what we'll see is point solutions, right? So it's like, I have this project for this thing, I'm gonna get budget for this, I'm gonna roll a truck out to all 7,800, 8,200 sites to send this new device out and then get it online and get this stood up. And they're starting to see that if I can deploy a platform instead, the threshold for deploying that next application dramatically lowers. So that first deployment is, I got to send somebody outside and plug these things in, but the very next CEO comes back and says, hey, I've heard about this new great thing, we need to deploy it. The CTO can then say, great, we've got a platform that can handle that, or I can add an additional node to this and seamlessly scale out my environment, and now all of a sudden I've got a platform to quickly roll out that new technology to all the sites.
To every site based upon that edge as the service orchestration layer. And to his point regarding Advanced Autos, they had a single VM that was running everything that had no resiliency. There's no high availability associated with that at all. Now they've got full high availability and they're updating stores with 20 stores a night. They've got everything they need and their efficiency is that way.
They're using ZTP to zero touch provisioning, as a feature in Fleet Manager, and it's just rolling out and setting up the nodes with very little people touching.
Lunchtime?
Yeah.
Maybe I have one question, but it's a question about your future in the European market. Because European is seeing a very interesting trend of preferring European-made products to American ones. I think it's a bad news for you because we have a British Store Magic as a good option. So 2 questions. First, do you observe this trend and are you worried about it? And second, what makes you better than Store Magic?
So first, yes, wherever they trend. I mean, I think news earlier this week was French government changing from Zoom to their own. And that's, I think it's a great posture to make in the market, honestly, kind of keep people in check from whatever your political views are. Just recognize that there are things beyond just the technology we're providing. I will say we have not seen that personally. I don't think we've seen any, any losses to some of the companies you mentioned directly in that market as a result of any of this. But yeah, we are aware that that is a trend. Specifically against StormMagic, first of all, generally we try not to bash any competitors. I'll start there. But there are differences in the product. Maturity is probably the biggest difference between the two products. What they do well, but it's very kind of specific to storage in a two-level environment in this very specific deployment style. And if that's where the challenges that you face as an organization fit, that could be a viable alternative. What we typically see though is that the challenges extend beyond just managing a storage layer between sites. It's I need to manage the hypervisor. They don't necessarily include that quite the exact same way. They want to scale out beyond just 2 nodes. They want the full ecosystem of partners that we have alongside the Scale brand. And that's usually, it's not a bake-off between the two of us. They may be in the solution set early on and dismissed before we get to the final 1 or 2 that they're going to do with POC needs.
To add to that, based upon our European leadership, Europe and EMEA have been a really key, I would say, advancement with our imaging partners. So we've got a program called Authorized Imaging Partners, and we've gotten a lot of partners come straight out of Europe because of the fact that the countries, the partners, they want to control supply chain, they want to be able to control tariffs, they want to make sure that everything is manufactured locally, especially from a hardware perspective. And so there's been a big push from European partners to be able to do exactly that within our imaging program.
The problem with the key product is that it's not getting urgent. Nobody was talking about it 6 months before. Now you can really move in Europe. We have to get rid of stuff not coming from us. Everything is run on Microsoft.
Yeah.
The whole government is based on Microsoft services. And we have seen that if the American government is unhappy with what you're doing with the software, they switch it off.
Right.
And that's the reason why Zoom is now being replaced by, and maybe the quality of the European product is not online with Zoom, but that's a matter of time.
Mm-hmm.
And the same will happen with cloud services. It's now all on Azure, but of course, within 2 years, there can be an alternative.
Mm-hmm.
So cut your company into 2, put it in the Netherlands where your headquarters already,
Mm-hmm.
and make a European company out of it.
Well, I don't know if we want to make that kind of prediction today.
No, of course not.
But you make a good point. And
the fact that the British Prime Minister went to China to set up new relations for trade, yeah, that shows that the whole world is insane right now and changing his mind.
Yes.
What was unpredictable.
The market is very unpredictable, but it's always been unpredictable. I'm not nearly as young as I look. And I don't remember a time that this market was easy or unpredictable. Or easy and predictable, ever. It never has been.
The consistent thread that I see though through all the changes we've had is that when there is what seems like a once in a lifetime event and it's like, oh my gosh, what are we gonna do? We end up navigating around it.
Sure.
Yeah.
So if we start to see that trend showing up in opportunities, I'm sure we will consider all sorts of things to make sure that we can stay relevant and still solve these same challenges for our customers.
Yep.
Interesting question.
Yeah, I love it.
Love it.
Well, it's more fun to have these kind of
No,
conversations.
but it depends on country. Europe is not the same. For
That's
example,
right, country by country.
To be honest, Poland is a country who like American, yeah? Well,
Yes.
But France, Germany, I think it's quite different.
Correct.
British.
I think what's really important about this slide is these are the values that our legacy Acumera had established that we have adopted as a company. I think this is probably important both for our customers and our partners to understand how we operate, especially the questions that are being asked about, European customers and international customers and partners, of course. And these values are, we operate against them worldwide. Our partners, are an extension of our team. We want them to be successful as we're successful. We enable them to be successful. And then our customers, nothing's more important to us than customer success. We have 24/7, follow the sun support for our customers. And if they're not successful, we're not successful as a company. Excuse me. That's how we operate. That's how we're measured. That's how I'm measured personally, even in marketing. And that's more important to me than the latest brand being on the dashboard.
Yeah.
I take customer calls, as we all do, if necessary. And so we thank you all for being here and letting us tell you our story. And we hope this is the beginning of many conversations.